Every kingdom has a legend. Every throne has a secret. But nobody ever talks about the person standing in the shadows. The one doing the real work. The one keeping everything alive while the powerful take all the credit. Today's story is about one of those people. He was not a warrior. He was not a mage. He was not royalty. He was just a human. A mechanic with grease on his hands and nothing but skill in his heart. But without him, the most feared dragon queen in the entire realm would have fallen. Her armor would have failed. Her enemies would have won. And an entire kingdom would have burned to the ground. 3 things are going to shock you today. First, the dragon queen never admitted she needed him. Second, he saved her life not once, but 3 times. Third, history tried to delete his name completely. But we found the story, and we are telling it today. Let me show you exactly how this happened. His name was untold. Nobody knew that name. Nobody said it out loud in the great halls of the Dragon Kingdom. Nobody carved it into stone or wrote it into the royal records. But if you walked the lower corridors of the Dragon Queen's fortress, past the kitchens, past the supply rooms, deep into the maintenance tunnels underneath the throne room, you would find a small workshop. And in that workshop, every single day, untold showed up to work. He was 26 years old, medium height, brown hair always messy, hands always stained with iron dust and machine oil. He wore the same gray overalls every day because he only owned 2 pairs. He did not carry a sword. He did not have magic. He had tools. A wrench set passed down from his father. A set of calibration instruments he built himself from scrap. A worn leather notebook filled with diagrams and measurements nobody else in the entire kingdom could understand. Cadden was a mechanic. Specifically, he was the only human mechanic in the Dragon Kingdom. Now you need to understand something about this world. Dragons were powerful. They were ancient. They were proud. They believed that human beings were useful in the way a cart is useful. You load things onto it. You push it where you need it to go. You do not ask its opinion. You do not care about its feelings. And you absolutely do not admit that you need it. The Dragon Queen's name was Vailindra. Queen Vailindra was the most powerful dragon ruler in 300 years. She stood nearly 7 feet tall in her humanoid form, with sharp golden eyes that never blinked when they did not need to. Her skin carried faint blue scales along her jaw and neck. Her voice alone could silence an entire battle. Dragons across 6 kingdoms bent their knee to her name. Human kingdoms sent tributes without being asked twice. Even other dragon lords lowered their gaze when she entered a room. She wore armor. That armor was not just decoration. It was the most sophisticated battle system ever built in the dragon world. Forged from a rare alloy called Draxsteel, reinforced with enchanted plating along the chest and shoulder joints, fitted with pressure-sensitive response coils in every joint that moved with the wearer like a second skinches. When fully powered, it could deflect dragon fire. It could absorb blunt force that would shatter a mountain. It could keep its wearer alive in conditions that would kill anything else in the world. But armor like that needed maintenance. It needed calibration. It needed recalibration after every major battle. The pressure coils needed realignment every 30 days, or they would misfire. The Draxsteel plating expanded in extreme heat and contracted in cold, if not properly managed. The joints would seize up mid-movement. One seized joint at the wrong moment in battle meant death. Even for a dragon queen. The dragon engineers, who originally built the armor, were long dead. The technical knowledge required to maintain it had faded with them over generations. 3 different dragon engineers had attempted to take over the maintenance duties in the past decade. All 3 had failed. One had caused a partial system failure during a training exercise that left the Queen's left arm locked in place for 6 hours. That engineer was never seen again. Then someone on the Queen's council, in quiet desperation, made a suggestion nobody wanted to hear out loud. There was a human in the lower maintenance tunnels. He had been working in the fortress for 4 years. He had originally been hired to repair basic heating pipes and structural supports. But on 2 separate occasions, he had submitted written reports, uninvited, on his own time, that identified stress fractures in the castle's lower foundation before they became a problem. Both reports were ignored. Both predictions came true exactly as written. Someone pulled those reports out of the old filing records. Someone read the technical language in those reports very carefully. And someone quietly, without announcing it to anyone, walked down to the lower maintenance tunnels and knocked on the door of a small workshop. Cadden Holt looked up from his workbench. A royal advisor in full formal robes stood in his doorway. The advisor said 4 words. "The Queen needs you." Cadden set down his wrench. He picked up his leather notebook. He said nothing. He simply stood up, wiped his hands on his overalls, and followed. The walk to the Queen's armor chamber took 12 minutes. Cadden counted every step, not because he was nervous, because that was how his brain worked. He noticed everything. He measured everything. He had been doing it since he was a child growing up in the outer human settlements, watching his father repair farming equipment with nothing but patience and precision. His father used to say something that stayed with him his whole life. Everything that is built can break. Everything that breaks can be understood. And everything that is understood can be fixed. Cadden believed that completely. What he did not yet know was that, in exactly 11 days, that belief was going to be tested in a way he could never have prepared for. The armor chamber was enormous. It sat in the center level of the fortress, circular room with walls covered in diagnostic panels and mounted tool racks. The armor itself stood in the middle of the room on an elevated platform, fully assembled, lit from below by low amber lighting. It was breathtaking. Even Cadden, who had seen technical drawings of this armor in old reference books he found in the fortress library, stopped walking when he saw it in person. It was bigger than he expected, and the level of engineering complexity visible even from across the room was staggering. 3 dragon technicians stood near the base of the platform. They did not look at Cadden when he walked in. They stared at the floor, which told him everything he needed to know about the mood in that room. Queen Vailindra was not there yet. Cadden walked straight to the armor. He did not ask permission. He set his notebook on the nearest workbench, opened it to a blank page, and began walking slowly around the platform, eyes moving across every visible surface of the suit. He pulled a small calibration probe from his front pocket and began taking readings on the shoulder joint alignment panels. He was on his 4th set of readings when the doors behind him opened. He did not turn around. He heard the room go completely silent. He heard the 3 dragon technicians straighten up. He heard footsteps that were slower and more deliberate than anyone else's in that room. He kept taking readings. "You are the human mechanic." Her voice was low, controlled, but there was weight behind it. The kind of weight that made the air feel heavier when she spoke. "Yes," Cadden said. He still did not turn around. He was writing numbers in his notebook. A pause. "You are not going to face me when you speak." "I will face you when I am done with this reading," Cadden said. "If I stop mid-measurement, I have to start over. And you do not want me to start over, because right now I am finding something in your left shoulder assembly that needs to be dealt with before it becomes a serious problem." Another pause. Longer this time. Then, very quietly, one of the dragon technicians made a small sound, almost like a gasp, because in 400 years of recorded Dragon Kingdom history, nobody had ever told Queen Vailindra to wait. Cadden finished his reading. He wrote the final number in his notebook. He capped his probe. Then he turned around. He looked up at her. She was taller than he expected even in this enclosed space. Her golden eyes studied him with an expression he could not immediately read. It was not anger. It was something more complicated than anger. He held her gaze and spoke clearly. Your left shoulder pressure coil is operating at 61% capacity. Standard threshold for safe operation is 80%. At current degradation rate, you have between 9 and 12 days before it fails completely. If it fails mid-battle, your left arm becomes dead weight. You will not be able to raise a shield. You will not be able to deflect a strike from your left side. In a real engagement, that is a kill window for any enemy who knows what they are looking for. He paused. Do you want me to fix it or not? Vailindra looked at him for a long moment. Then she said one word. Fix it. Cadden worked for 6 days straight. He slept 4 hours a night on a cot someone brought into the armor chamber. He ate meals that were left outside the chamber door. He barely spoke to anyone. He just worked. The 3 dragon technicians watched him the first day. By the second day, they were handing him tools when he asked. By the third day, they were asking him questions. Cadden answered every question clearly and without talking down to them. He was not arrogant. He was just precise. And precision, it turned out, was something those technicians had been missing for a very long time. The left shoulder coil was the obvious problem. But Cadden did not stop there. On day 2, he found microfractures in the chest plate lining that had been forming slowly for over a year. They were invisible to the eye. But under his instruments, they showed up like cracks in glass. One significant impact to that chest plate in exactly the wrong spot, and the plate would not absorb the force. It would transfer it directly inward. That was not a wound. That was a death sentence. On day 3, he found a calibration drift in the right knee joint that would have caused the queen to favor her left leg under heavy combat stress, without even realizing it. A skilled opponent watching her move would have noticed the pattern within minutes. He fixed all of it. On day 6, he ran a full diagnostic sequence. Every system came back at 94% or above. The left shoulder coil tested at 97%. He wrote the final numbers in his notebook, closed it, and walked to the chamber door. Queen Vailindra was standing outside. She had been checking in every morning. She never said much. She would stand in the doorway for a few minutes, look at the armor, look at Cadden, and leave. He had gotten used to it. It is done, Cadden said. She walked past him into the chamber and stood before the armor. She studied it in silence for a moment. Then she looked at him. You found more than the shoulder coil. Yes. The technicians told me. The chest fractures. The knee drift. Yes. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said something he did not expect. Why did you not report those findings to the council first? You could have used that information to negotiate better terms for yourself. Cadden looked at her directly. Because the armor needed to be fixed, he said simply. That was the job. Vailindra studied him for a long moment. Her expression shifted. It was the smallest change, something in the set of her jaw, something in the steadiness of her eyes. But Cadden noticed it because he noticed everything. She reached into a compartment on her belt and produced a small metal disc. She held it out to him. It was engraved with a dragon symbol he did not immediately recognize. What is this? He asked. A passage token, she said. It gives you access to every level of this fortress. No questions asked. No escort required. He looked at the disc. Then he looked at her. I already have maintenance access to the lower levels. This is not maintenance access, she said. This is my personal authorization. It means no dragon in this fortress has the authority to stop you, question you, or remove you from any space you choose to enter. He understood what she was saying. In the Dragon Kingdom, that kind of token was given to generals, to royal council members, to the most trusted advisors in the Queen's inner circle. It had never been given to a human. He took the disc. He did not thank her. She did not expect him to. They both understood that what had just happened in that chamber over 6 days was not a transaction. It was something else. Something neither of them had a word for yet. He put the disc in his front pocket, picked up his notebook, and walked back to his workshop. He had work to do. 11 days after Cadden completed the armor repair, the attack came. It was not expected. The Dragon Kingdom had peace agreements with every neighboring territory. There had been no intelligence reports of hostile movement. No warning signs along the border outposts. Nothing. But at dawn on the 11th day, coalition force of 3 rival dragon lords arrived at the northern edge of the kingdom with an army of 12,000. They had been planning it for 2 years. They had timed it specifically for this window because their intelligence network had told them something important. The Dragon Queen's armor had been malfunctioning. They believed it was still failing. They believed she was vulnerable. They had built their entire strategy around one single assumption, that when Vaylindra took the field in her armor, it would seize up under combat stress and she would fall. They did not know about Cadden Holt. They did not know that every system in that armor was now running at peak capacity. They did not know that the kill windows they had identified and memorized and trained their attack formations around no longer existed. They did not know that a human mechanic in gray overalls had quietly, completely, invisibly removed every single vulnerability from the most powerful battle system in the known world. Vaylindra received word of the attack while she was in the main strategy chamber. She looked at her council for exactly 3 seconds. Then she stood up and walked to the armor chamber. Cadden was already there. He had heard the alarm bells. He had gone directly to the chamber, not because anyone told him to, but because the armor was his responsibility. He was running a pre-deployment check when she walked inches. "Status," she said. "All systems at 94% or above," he said without looking up. "Left shoulder coil is at 98. Chest plate integrity is solid. Right knee joint is tracking correctly." He paused. "You are ready." She began the process of entering the armor. The Dragon technicians assisted with the external buckle sequences. Cadden moved around the suit, making final adjustment checks on each joint assembly as the pieces locked into place. He worked fast. He worked quietly. He worked without a single wasted movement. When the final chest plate sealed, he did one last check on the left shoulder coil sensor. It beeped back clean. He stepped back. "You are good," he said. Vaylindra's golden eyes looked at him through the open visor. "If I do not return," she began. "You will return," Cadden said. There was no drama in his voice. No false bravado. Just the same flat certainty he brought to every measurement and every repair. "The armor will not fail you today. I made sure of that." She held his gaze for 1 moment. Then she closed the visor and walked out. The battle lasted 4 hours. Cadden spent those 4 hours in the armor chamber. He did not watch from the walls like the other fortress workers. He sat at his workbench with his notebook open, going through every system diagram for the 5th time, checking for anything he might have missed, looking for any variable he had not accounted for. He found nothing. He had missed nothing. Reports started coming in through the fortress communication system at mid-morning. The coalition's northern flank had broken within the 1st hour. The central formation had collapsed in the 2nd hour when Vaylindra took the field directly. By the 3rd hour, 2 of the 3 rival dragon lords had retreated. By the 4th hour, the 3rd had surrendered. The armor had performed without a single malfunction. Every attack that hit the chest plate was absorbed cleanly. The left shoulder joint moved freely through every combat sequence. The right knee tracked true under every load condition. The coalition's entire strategy had crumbled, not because of a failure of courage or numbers or tactics on their side, but because the vulnerability they had built their entire plan around had been quietly, completely, invisibly removed by a human in gray overalls, with a leather notebook and a wrench set passed down from his father. After the battle, the Dragon Kingdom celebrated for 3 days. There were feasts in the great halls. Dragon warriors told stories of the fight. Ballads were written about Valindra's power, her speed, her dominance on the field. Historians began drafting accounts of the battle that would be read for centuries. None of those accounts mentioned Cadden Holt. Not one word. Not one line. Not a footnote. Not a passing reference to the armor maintenance that had made the entire victory possible. The human mechanic who had found the fractures, realigned the coils, and corrected the knee drift was simply not part of the story that the Dragon Kingdom chose to tell about itself. Cadden did not attend the feasts. He did not expect to be invited. He spent the 3 days of celebration doing full post-deployment maintenance on the armor. Battle conditions always created micro-stress on the joint assemblies. It needed to be checked. It needed to be maintained. So that was what he did. On the 4th day after the battle, the door to his workshop opened. It was Valindra. She was alone. No advisors. No guards. No announcement. She simply walked in and stood in the middle of his workshop, looking at the walls covered in diagrams and the shelves packed with tools and the workbench covered in components. Cadden looked up. "You were not at the celebration," she said. "No," he said. "I looked for you." He did not respond to that. He put down the component he was working on and turned to face her fully. She looked different than she did in the armor chamber or the strategy rooms. Not smaller exactly, but something in her posture was different. The weight she always carried, the absolute authority of her presence, was still there. But something underneath it had shifted. "The coalition knew about the armor faults," she said. "They built their entire attack around those vulnerabilities. Every weakness you found and repaired, they knew about all of them." "I figured that," Cadden said. "Which means your repair work did not just maintain the armor," she said. "It changed the outcome of the entire battle. Before you touched that suit, they had a viable strategy to defeat me. After you finished, they had nothing." "Yes," Cadden said. She was quiet for a moment. "The historians are writing the official record of the battle," she said. "Your name is not in it." "I know. Does that bother you?" He thought about it honestly, the way he thought about every question, directly, without performance. "No," he said. "The armor works. The kingdom is secure. You came back. That is what mattered." She looked at him for a long time. Then she reached into her belt again. She produced something different this time. Not a metal disc. A folded document with the royal seal pressed into dark wax at the bottom. She held it out. He took it. He opened it. He read it carefully. It was an official royal decree. It created a new position in the Dragon Kingdom that had never existed before. Chief Architect of Royal Systems. The role carried full council access, permanent fortress residency, and a direct reporting line to the Queen herself. The salary listed was higher than any human had ever been paid for any role in Dragon Kingdom history. And at the bottom, in Valindra's own handwriting, was a single line that was not part of the formal decree text. It read, "Emphasis history may not say your name, but I know it, and I will not forget it, emphasis." Cadden folded the document carefully. He placed it on his workbench. He picked up his wrench. "When do I start?" he said. Valindra almost smiled. It was the closest thing to a smile he had ever seen on her face. "You already have," she said. She turned and walked out of his workshop. Cadden looked back down at the component in front of him. He picked it up. He went back to work. Because that was who he was. Not a legend. Not a warrior. Not a name in a history book. Just a human. With tools. And the quiet, unshakable belief that everything broken could be understood. And everything understood could be fixed. History forgot him. But the kingdom survived because of him. And somewhere in the lower corridors of the Dragon Queen's fortress, a small workshop light burned all night long. Here is the part nobody talks about. Vailindra never told her council how close they came to losing that battle. She never told them about the chest plate fractures that could have killed her with a single well-placed strike. She never told them that her greatest military victory in 3 centuries rested entirely on the work of one human mechanic who nobody believed inches. She kept that secret because the Dragon Kingdom needed to believe its queen was invincible. That is how power works. It does not show its maintenance records. But Cadden Holt knew the truth, and Vailindra knew he knew. And that shared truth became the foundation of something the Dragon Kingdom had never seen before, a real partnership between a human and a Dragon Queen. Built not on power, but on trust. If this opened your eyes to how real strength actually works, the next story will take it even further. So let us bring this all together. Cadden Holt was never in the history books. He was never celebrated. He was never given a statue, or a ballad, or a place at the victory feast. But without him, the Dragon Queen falls. Without him, the coalition wins. Without him, everything changes. That is the real lesson here. The most powerful person in the room is not always the one wearing the crown. Sometimes it is the quiet one in the corner with the tools and the notebook who sees what everyone else missed. This story is part of our ongoing HFY series where humans prove, again and again, that skill and heart and quiet determination can stand toe-to-toe with any power in the universe. If you want more stories like this one, hit subscribe right now. We drop new HFY stories every week, and you do not want to miss what is coming next. Hit the like button if Cadden earned your respect today. And leave a comment below answering this question. If you were Cadden, would you have accepted the position? Or would you have stayed anonymous in your workshop? We read every comment. We will see you in the next one.